Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for the Walking Dead comic books. I've finally decided to enter into the comic book stage of my Walking Dead videos. I've been meaning to do that, but after the most recent issue of the comic book was released, I felt like I had to make a video on this. Just a big warning here, there are spoilers in this video. If you do not want to be spoiled, do not watch this video because you will be spoiled. Okay, so I have read the comics pretty much up until this point. I have yet to actually read issue 144 because I don't have the availability for it, but I've read a lot of things online. I kind of get the gist of what happened. And I have to say that it was probably one of the saddest, most shocking, and probably one of the deadliest issues of the series. And it's a shame we have to wait till August 12th for another installment. I mean, geez, Robert Kirkman really loves to put the suspense in there, and I have to say there is a lot of suspense waiting right here for this next issue. So, pretty much what happens in this issue, it takes place right after issue 143, where Rick encounters Alpha and the Whisperers in their territory to get Carl back, and then of course Alpha shows Rick that big, huge herd of walkers that's just in that area. And I mean, that is massive. That has to probably be tens of thousands of walkers behind there. And, pretty much the Whisperers and Alpha have both shown they are a threat. They are somebody that, they're people that are not to take lightly. They are serious. They are dangerous. Probably, I'd even go so far as willing to say they're more dangerous than the Governor, Negan, the cannibals, you name it. Robert Kirkman has really set up a very good villain that has really amassed more, issues and more complications for this group than we may anticipate. So I'm interested to see where they go with that. So after Alpha does this, they go back to the camp. And Alpha just pretty much explains, who they are. She pretty much tries to lay it out for Rick that really the Whisperers are a group of people that, really feel like the real world is living amongst the walkers. That they believe the walkers own the world, that maybe they're more superior than regular people are. So they pretty much, put masks over their face of walker faces in a sense. They wear walker clothing, dirty clothing to mask the smell, and they live amongst them. And it's almost as though they live as them. They eat rotting carcasses of animals, as far as I know. I don't know whether they eat people or not. I don't think they do, but don't quote me on that. But they have shown that they are dangerous. They carry knives. They've killed several of Rick's people in the past, members from the Hilltop community, and Alpha just believes that they are living the proper way. And she mocks Rick and the group. She kind of says, you built a shrine to a world that is long dead, and equates them to children that are playing pretend. Basically going into this idea of you guys are living in a fantasy world. We're living in the real world. We're doing the right thing. And of course, that's up for debate. But, they basically live like animals, really. She describes herself as, there has to be an alpha and there has to be a beta, people that are, below the food chain or below the chain of command or whatever it may be. She sees herself as like the most powerful, the smartest, the one that is in charge. And she realizes though that position could be put in danger. That she might end up, losing that power to somebody else, and she admits that. But she says that this is just the way of the world, and she really mocks what Rick and the group are trying to do by creating civilization, creating these communities, not realizing the situation. So she really feels like she's in the right, and her group is. And I don't know how many of them are living versus how many of them that are just walkers, but there appear to be quite a bit. Um, we also deal with some other problems with Carl. Carl and Lydia still have grown this connection, and Rick and Carl had a big fight earlier, that, Carl didn't want to leave without Lydia. Seeing her as, something great in this world, something that he loves. He has had relations with her. That was his first experience of having those relations. And, I think that there's more than that going on. I just feel like there's an attachment. There's something that Carl sees in her. The fact that she can look at him without cringing because of him missing his eye is something that he appreciates and really likes. So he does have feelings for her, and he won't leave without her. And he even tells Rick about, that unfortunately, the people of this community have relations with each other that's non-consensual, which we would equate to being rape, non-consensual acts. And Rick is obviously appalled by this. Why is this kind of thing going on? But Alpha basically explains that it's a primal thing. She believes that rape was something that was created from the natural world, so she doesn't see anything wrong with it. Whereas you and I and other readers may look at that and be absolutely appalled, similar to how Rick is. But you look at the group of the Whisperers and the fact that they are living mostly as animalistic kind of creatures, it kind of makes sense for them to unfortunately practice that. There's a lot of animal species that when they reproduce, things like that go on. It's not about consent. It's not about the idea of being able to consent, understanding what things like that are. It's just something that happens, unfortunately, and they don't know any better. And it's basically that Alpha and them seem to be living like this, and it's something that Lydia just can't accept. And I can understand that completely. I can only imagine the kind of trauma that must be. And not everybody can live the way that Alpha wants to live. That's why there's different people, and that's just how the world is even now. We have individuals that have different beliefs of what what is right, what is wrong, things along those lines. That are it's an endless debate, in regards to various issues. But Lydia can't handle it, which is understandable. So, Alpha equates that as her being weak. She believes that feeling that way is weak. She actually smacks her, I think, if I read the synopsis correctly. And basically calls her weak, calls her out in front of everybody, realizing that her daughter just isn't cut out for this kind of a living situation. She doesn't want to conform. It's interesting, maybe to see what she was like before that, all this time. But, now that she's been introduced to something different, I think that she would rather prefer to live with Rick's group and Carl's group. And Rick basically agrees to take her away. And if I also read it correctly, well, Alpha, what she ends up doing is she disowns her daughter. She disowns Lydia, says, that she can leave. She doesn't have to be a part of this anymore. But if I read this correctly, apparently she whispers to Rick that his group could probably provide the safety that Lydia needs. And I think that, even though Alpha seems to have adopted this kind of a lifestyle, she realizes that maybe there is still a little bit of hope. So I'll be interested to delve more into Alpha and see if there is a little bit more there. What really makes her the supreme out of everybody there. Definitely a question that hopefully will be answered one day. But I think that she's definitely shown that she's dangerous. She makes the shots, and she's done some very terrible things that have really raised our eyebrows, as well as the attention of Rick's group. Because basically, here's what happens. And this is the shocking moment, the moment that just nobody ever saw coming. Basically, Alpha's group, it seems that they don't want any problems. They're more the kind of individuals who just want to be left alone. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want people coming into their territory. So what they basically tell Rick is, all we want is for you to stay out. Because Rick tries to offer her things, and Alpha says, you don't have anything that I want. She's not interested in commingling. She's not interested in being introduced to a new type of lifestyle. She's not interested in a trade. She's not interested in any of this. She and her group are comfortable living the way that they are, and all they want is to be left alone. Rick's group, well, the Hilltop people were the first to really do it, went into that territory and basically ended up, freaking out the Whisperers. I guess you could equate it to that. And, many issues ago, several of those individuals were killed. Some of them were taken hostage. And then, of course, they took Lydia hostage. Well, Alpha realizes the danger that's associated with all of this and basically says, no, I don't want this anymore. You guys stay on your side, and our group will stay on our side. We won't cross paths. That's the way it'll be. And, Rick obviously wants to know, well, how are we going to know whose territory is where? Where's the boundary? And Alpha goes, oh, don't worry. You'll see my boundary. You'll know exactly where everything is at. Well, Rick and the group end up, Rick, Carl, and Lydia go back towards their community, and you have Andrea, Michonne, and Dante waiting for them. And when they get back, they see these wooden stakes in the ground, basically marking like it basically is looking like a boundary. It marks the boundary, and of course, they are not just stakes in the ground. Unfortunately, this is heads on top of the stakes. And Alpha basically gives Rick and the group a warning. She says, if you guys ever cross this boundary, if you ever come into our territory, you ever do any of this again, I will send that large herd of walkers across this border and we will decimate you, is pretty much the threat that she makes. She is not afraid to use whatever is at her disposal to get rid of Rick's group and the Hilltop and the Sanctuary and even the Kingdom. All those communities that have been working together, living more of a civilized world, kind of life. She's willing to destroy them. And basically, we saw in several issues ago that Alpha was walking amongst the individuals at the fair, and it would appear that what happened was she was able to capture a lot of people from that event, take them and beheaded them. Because earlier in the last issue, she came back, and when Rick saw her, she had blood on a machete, which indicates that she had killed somebody, it would seem. You don't really get, it wouldn't make sense that she would be killing walkers because she keeps them. And we basically find out that she has made a border with the heads of some of the survivors from the Hilltop, Alexandria, the Sanctuary, and the Kingdom. And she's killed several people. And it's unfortunate, and it breaks Rick down. I mean, he absolutely falls to the ground in grief, realizing what has happened, what he's done. Based on the conflict that happened is is why it happened. And Alpha and the group basically went in there and captured people, beheaded them, and put them at the border. And after seeing this, Michonne, Andrea, and Dante are there, and Andrea just asks, what are we going to do now? And I don't think there's really an answer. I think that's really something that we're going to explore in the next couple of issues. But the characters that died, there were quite a few, and I'll list them. Olivia, she was from Alexandria. She was introduced to us way back in volume 12. She was a little bit of a larger woman. She lived in Alexandria. She was mostly the one responsible for keeping the food supply and the guns locked up. She was one of the ones. Josh was a young boy from Alexandria. He had a friendship with Carl. Carl had made some of those animal figurines for him that he was making. Carson, Negan's advisor from the Sanctuary. He had a brother in the Hilltop named Harlan, but Carson's dead. Tammy Rose from the Hilltop. She was the woman who was the mother of one of the boys that Carl beat up, and Sophia beat up, and had basically been upset with the way that Maggie was dealing with things. She was one of the victims. Luke, one of the new arrivals with Magna's group. There was Erin, another member of Alexandria who's been there for a while. Again, she's mostly just been a background character, but she had like blonde hair that was kind of tied up, and she wore glasses, so she was one of the victims. Ken from the Hilltop, the one guy who was originally taken hostage, along with Dante. But Ken was also captured and he was held in the Whisperers camp for a while. He's dead. Amber, she was one of Negan's wives. She was also with Mark, the guy who got his face burned by Negan. She was one of the people that was dead. Louis, he was somebody from the Hilltop. He was the guy that made the wine. Oscar, he was another guy from the Hilltop. He had that long goatee that was braided. And then two major characters from the comic books. Rosita is dead, and probably even a little more shocking than that is Ezekiel from the Kingdom. The leader of the Kingdom is dead. Definitely a very shocking development, and I'm gonna make a separate video to kind of go over that and really give my thoughts on what that means and what that's gonna mean for the comics in the future. So that is my review of the issue 144. I mean, just a lot of major things happen, very shocking, and I am very anxious to see what the comics will bring in the next volume. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. If there are any suggestions that you guys have for videos that you would like me to do, don't be afraid to suggest them. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for watching.